wave of panelists. We have another wave coming in a minute, but right there, Jimmy Himes, VFL Mike Stoll in town. Welcome here. VFL Will Overstreet right here. Yep. Bob Hodge right there. All right, gentlemen. Tennessee annihilated number 24 NC State last night in Charlotte, 51-10. They won in every way a team can win. Offense was explosive. Run game was fantastic. Defense dominant. Will, I'll let you start. Top takeaway from last night's game.
Top takeaway was defense is for real. There's no other way around it. You had 13 tackles for loss. You had 3 sacks. You've gone 12 quarters without giving up a touchdown on defense. At this point, you have to look at this team and say, this is a strength of this team, that front seven right now. The way those guys were playing of flying around, physically were beating NC State every time to the punch. When they tried to run the ball, there was nothing there. And it was one of the more impressive defensive, especially in that front seven, that I have seen from a Tennessee team in a long time. I just took a couple of plays also with Amari Thomas. They have a third down pass play. He reacts, gets out, makes the tackle downfield to save him from getting a first down. Arion Carter. You just had so many more guys that look like potential draft picks in the first and second string team of eventually, as they continue to grow, that these guys are NFL players. And we have not had that many on a team as much as we do right now. It is a deep defense, especially up front.
Bob, take
Go back to the 90s to see a defense, I think, that Tennessee that had that kind of depth.
Or at least 01.
Yeah.
You want to jump in there?
Yeah, we had that. But yeah, exactly.
I want to just talk about the diversity of the offense a little bit. Because you sat there and you saw last night, the tight ends seemed to be back in Tennessee's offense for the first time in a long, long time. And I thought that they not only looked the part, they looked athletic, and I was torn between that one and another thing about the defense. Where are the missed tackles that you've kind of gotten used to over the years? Guys coming in, they put in a shoulder, they try to go for a big hit.
They went in the transfer portal, by the way.
They're not somewhere else.
Yesterday, the defense, when the guys beyond the line of scrimmage had a chance to make a play, they made it. And I think this time last year we were talking about, well, you got to clean up missed tackles and do these things. So those were the two biggest takeaways I had was, one, you look like you got good depth and you're going to use your tight ends, and two, your defense looks athletic and they can tackle.
Well, you've had 3 touchdowns, one from each of your tight ends so far, and you would have had a second one from Kitselman last night. We'll get into penalties later, but Will, we were talking before the show about the troubles that a good tight end could present to a defense.
Yeah, a good tight end and a good system, when they're having one of those touchdowns was directly related to it. He was blocking, same play. He pops out for a pass. It gets those linebackers, it makes a life for linebacker very difficult because you can't trust your eyes. If you're having to watch that tight end and you see him block down, you're coming up to stop the run, well, all of a sudden he lets go and takes off. That is when you have an athletic tight end that's able to do that, it makes the life of the linebacker very, very difficult because it all looks the same, and then it pops a pass on you, and you're in trouble. You can't win in a lot of situations.
And I think Bob brings up a good point when you look at, you've got the run game, all right? You've got the deep ball is back. Now, you didn't see tons of it last night, but I think it's going to be there. You've got tight ends that you're getting involved now. You ran 3 shovel passes. It's like Nico can run if you box him in. If you're an opposing defensive coordinator, there's a lot of stuff to worry about with that offense. But Mike, Jimmy, your top takeaway from last night?
Yeah, so for me, I'll take it a little bit step further on Will. The 2 interior defensive tackles just beat the crud out of those inside guys. There was a stat they showed at the beginning of the game, how many starts these offensive linemen had and how much depth. And they had a couple of 7-year guys. Like, it took me 7 years to get through college, but I only got to play for 4.
Yeah,
These guys are still playing. They're 33 years old. I don't know. But the thing about it is, all those starts, if I'm an offensive lineman and I have that many starts under my belt, I just got my rear end handed to me by 2 really good defensive tackles. And I expect the depth and the way that they rotate those guys through, that's going to be a big, big point of emphasis. Look for them to continue to do that.
Jimmy.
I thought there were 3 players on NC State's offense Tennessee needed to contain. So the quarterback Grayson McCall ends up with 110 yards of total offense when quarterbacks all over the country are putting up video game numbers, right? He has 110 yards of total offense.
A guy with 10,000 yards under his belt for his career. So it's not like
Passing, that's
yeah,
right.
he's not usually a 100-yard guy. Yeah.
Right, and over 1,000 yards rushing. Concepcion, the wide receiver, 53 yards. He had one explosive play when they did a nice job isolating on the linebacker, but you kept him contained.
Yep.
The running back, Jordan Waters, 7 carries, -4 yards. You completely shut down their 3 weapons you had to stop. And I thought that was a really good defensive effort in that regard.
The Concepcion thing, no, we didn't see the secondary. Look, we went into this season saying the secondary is new. That's the question mark. You're going to have that defensive line that really bails them out. Well, they did last night. I mean, the defensive line made it difficult on McCall to get anything downfield. But when he did get passes off, he wasn't able to get anything going with Concepcion, a guy who had 10 touchdown catches last year. He had 3 in their opening game against Western Carolina. The fact you contained him, I don't want to go completely all in on the secondary. Oh, we were wrong. They're fantastic. There will be more tests down the road. But, boy, that's a really good first test. If you'd asked me before the game, will Tennessee hold him to 5 catches and 50 yards? I said there's no way. So kudos to Tim Banks. And that's a guy I want to throw out some credit for right here because – every loss, people go back to fire Tim Banks. This defense has gotten better statistically, whether you believe it or not. It's gotten better statistically. I don't care what your eyes tell you. For 3 straight years, it's gotten better every year. It looks better again this year. Rodney Garner's a heck of a D-line coach. Everybody knows that. But how about some credit for Tim Banks? That guy has put a really good defensive unit together that would be downright scary if you're an offensive coordinator. That's the interesting thing for me. When you look across this team, athletes, you're just seeing better athletes. Bob, we talked about it last night. It's been a long time since Tennessee has had this many, whether they're young, inexperienced, or not. You got athletes you got horses out there for the first time in a long time.
Everybody that I know that got to go see a full practice, that was the first takeaway that they had was, my gosh, this team is athletic. They're athletic everywhere. Everybody
Bigger,
can
faster.
run.
Yeah.
And so you saw it last night. I mean, North Carolina State, no, are they Alabama or Georgia? But like you said, that's one of the 4 best teams on paper, and they made them look like Vanderbilt. And I mean, and that's about what North Carolina State looked like. I mean, they were a ranked team, you know. So I think that athleticism shows up. The Concepcion kid, what did he have after he touched the ball? Very little. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of he catches a 2-yard pass and turns it into a 12-yard. No, he catches a 2-yard pass and he turned it into a 4-yard pass. You know, and that's athleticism on your defense.
I think the secondary, not only they're better tacklers than a year ago, they're more physical than they were a year ago.
Yes.
To your point about not missing tackles as well, I thought they did a nice job in that regard.
Let me throw out 3 names here in case you don't come up a little later. Will Brooks. Everybody's going to make a big deal out of the walk-on status. I'm guessing he's getting some NIL dollars, so I wouldn't worry about it. But I'm sure his parents would like to have him on scholarship. Josh Heupel didn't seem – Holly Roth throws him a softball joke, and he just has no personality to handle it. He just kind of moves on, doesn't say anything, doesn't take the bait on joking about Will Brooks. But credit to him. He almost got a second pick there as well. Max Gilbert, 3 of 4 on field goals, missed a 53-yarder, but okay, that's sketchy on the college ranks. I do think you've got we'll get there. I think you found a kicker. We'll debate this a little later. I think you're in the next segment. And then the other thing I'll throw out, Deshaun Bishop. One of the plays that stood out to me was the interception. Goes back for a touchdown. Deshaun Bishop doesn't make the play, but he tackles him in the end zone. He almost made the play. The fact that he's out there running him down from behind. I just think this team is showing some things we haven't seen in a while.
Against Chattanooga, Tennessee made a big deal about Nathan Laycock chasing a guy on the interception and tackling him on the 10. Well, I think you saw the same thing with Deshaun Bishop, making that kind. And Bishop is not a 4.40 guy, right?
Yeah.
But he kept going after him, and I thought that said a lot about his effort and the culture of this team.
Agreed. All right, when we come back, the best player, the worst decision, the biggest disappointment from last night's game. And if Mike's still on, we'll let him bash Max Gilbert, the poor kid. Going back on the Sports Source.